Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to show you how I crochet this Tunisian crochet short row motif in the shape of a hexagon. I'm using a size H8 5mm crochet hook. This is a regular crochet hook which, as you can see, all of the loops will fit onto it. I've used some rubber bands and a pin holder at the end of the hook to keep things from falling off. You can use any kind of Tunisian crochet hook or a regular crochet hook that you want. And a pair of scissors and a yarn needle. And today what I'm using is, I love this cotton, 100% cotton worsted weight medium, number 4 yarn from Hobby Lobby in white and blue. As you can see, the wedges in this motif come to nice points, and the technique that we use is non-standard on the return pass, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So you see we've got rows. Each row decreases, gets shorter and shorter until we've got this one row here, which is only one stitch. And then we do more rows and they get longer and longer and longer. So the part where the rows get shorter as we go, I call the ascending wedge, because it's like walking up stair steps. And the segment where we come down the stairs, I'm calling it the descending wedge. So if you get my written pattern for this, you'll see those terms. We start by making a slip knot. Putting it on the hook, chain 4, slip stitch in the first chain to join so that it becomes a ring. We'll be working our long rows into that ring. Chain 12. Now we're going to work the first forward pass into the back loops of the chain, not the back bumps. We don't want to do that in this particular pattern, because if we work into the back bumps, we're going to get a lumpy seam. Instead, we're working into just the back loops of the chain. The first loop on the hook counts as the first loop. 2, 3, 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And then we pull up one additional loop in the ring to make 13 loops on the hook. Now, the return pass on every single row of this pattern is done in a non-standard way. Normally, for standard Tunisian crochet, you yarn over and pull up a loop to make a chain 1. Which is perfect if you're making a square, but we're making wedges in the shape of triangles, and therefore we don't want to do that. Instead, we're going to decrease on the very first stitch. yarn over and pull through 2. And we're going to repeat that. Yarn over, pull through 2, all the way back to the beginning. When we have 2 remaining loops on the hook, we introduce the next color. For this pattern, I'm using blue and white. You can use any colors you want. Be creative. Once you understand the concept of short rows, you can use any colors you want, change colors wherever you want, or just use self-striping or variegated yarn and you'll get an interesting design. When I introduce a new color, in order to keep the yarn balls from being confused and twisted, my habit is to put the blue in the back, or color A, and color B, or white, in the front. So, keeping these 2 strands out of the way, insert my hook into the next vertical bar, pull up a loop, and in each vertical bar back to the beginning, or the end, back to the circle. Now this is a short row, so we're not going to pull up a loop in the circle. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Yarn over, pull through 2, repeating that all the way back. To the outer edge. Until there are only 2 loops remaining. Pull the white to the front, get the tail out of the way, pull the blue from the back, yarn over, and pull through the last 2 loops. Now, to start working with the next row, I need to get the white out of the way. So I will pull it off to the outside edge of the row. And that leaves me more able to handle the blue yarn. So the next short row, and this is row 3, we will pull up a loop in every vertical bar except the last one. There are 2 left. Now there's 1 left, and we're not going to work into that. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yarn over and pull through 2. Change color. Forward pass, for row 4, two vertical bars left, 1 vertical bar left, 2, 4, 6, 8, yarn over, pull through 2, change color, forward pass, work all but the last one, return pass, put the blue to the back, pull up the white, yarn over, next row, all but the last vertical bar, return, change color, all but the last vertical bar, which leaves us with only 2 bars on the hook, 2 loops on the hook, blue to the back, pull white up, yarn over, and pull through. This is the shortest row, so we have made ascending rows like we're walking up steps. This should be row 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Now row 8, we're going to work ourselves back down, descending down these steps to make points, nice V's of each color. On the descending rows, we are using the last vertical bar in each row. Okay, we're going to pick up in this vertical bar, then we're going down to this row and picking up this vertical bar, then down to this row and picking up in both vertical bars. So you see we're making a V. Now we're going to go down to this point with the white. So we pick up all these vertical bars in the blue. We never work into the slanting bars, only the vertical bars. And these 2 vertical bars in white. Now our aim is to go down this slide here and pick up these last 2 of the blue. So we picked up all of these white from this row, and we're picking up a white from this row, picking up under a white, and we're picking up under these last 2 blues. Return. Now this white row goes all the way down into the blue. And the last 2 bars of the white. Yarn over, pull through, go all the way back to the outer edge. Now this is a complete wedge. We've got one long row and all of the rest of these are short rows. So this is row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It just so happens that the number of rows equals the number of chains that we started with after we joined this circle. Now, to start the next wedge, we want to do a long row. So, make sure you don't miss any of those vertical bars. Sometimes at the edge they kind of hide. Okay, we've picked up in all of the white vertical bars. Now we have one more blue vertical bar and in the ring. So we should now have 13 loops on our hook. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. Okay? And then return as normal, which in this case is a non-standard return. Pulling through 2 loops every time. Okay, so there is our first wedge plus the first row of the next wedge. And in the pattern, these are rows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Actually, 13 is a repeat of row 1, except you're not working into a chain, you're working into vertical bars. So we need to repeat rows 2 through 13 until we have 5 more wedges. Actually, we'll repeat it until we have the last row is a white row, because we're going to do a seam. I'm trying to find the seam. I pride myself on being able to make an invisible seam. Here it is. But it is somewhat obvious if you really know what you're looking for. So anyway, this white row is the last one we worked, and it is joined with a mattress stitch to the first blue row. And I'll show you that in the next video. I have now completed all 6 wedges. Counting the spokes, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you'll see I ended with a white row, and we're going to make a seam, hand sewn, to this first blue row. So the first thing I do is take both colors of yarn and pull them out through the last loop and cut them so that there's plenty of length to use for hand stitching. Then I pull them out all the way out through that last loop. Now, the way that we deal with these ends has to be done in a certain sequence. At least my experience tells me that it works best to do it in the sequence I'm about to tell you. So what we're going to start with is this white end over here, which is color B. I'm turning the piece over. I'll thread this end into the yarn needle. And I'm going to weave in this end to keep it out of the way for what comes next. Because I found if I leave this end loose while I'm making the seam, it gets in the way and it causes me confusion. And you don't have to use this particular sequence of strands and the way I'm doing this, but I think it looks nice on the back and it works for me. Now I will go in a different direction. And one more direction to really secure this thing. Well, it didn't go through. I'm going to call that good enough for now. Okay, the next part is I'm going to use this blue strand, which is the one that we started with, and I'm going to weave it in around that center ring. This is color A. And it doesn't matter which direction you go, but I try to not pierce the yarn, but rather go under the strands, because I'm going to draw this up and use it to cinch the circle a little tighter. So I went around about 1.5 times, and that ought to do me. And then I just pull on the tail until the center ring closes down nicely. And then weave in the end, which can be done by just going back through a few stitches that way, and if you want to, you can weave even more. Okay, that's what it looks like on the back. Now, the next step, I'm saving this blue yarn for last because that's the yarn that I'm going to use to actually make the seam. But I'm going to do a little treatment to this white edge. Do you notice how it's really very floppy? I like to give it a little stability by doing this. So I'm taking the white yarn and I'm holding the seam so that I can see the back bumps. See these back bumps? And I'm just going to thread the yarn through the back bumps one at a time. This last back bump is kind of farther back there. I'm going to remove the needle for now. And I can use this as a drawstring to draw the wobbly stitches into a straighter line. And for now, I'm going to put it to the back. So now we've got two edges that we're going to match up each row of vertical bars, which are actually horizontal right this minute. And here's how I do that. You notice this blue thread is coming out of the last white thread. I'm going from front to back under the last stitch, or actually that's the first stitch of the first row. Pull through to the back, and then I'm going back into that same place where the blue yarn is coming from, just under the back loop, and pulling it through to the back. Now, I want you to notice that if I leave that loop loose, I will add to the stitch count. There is no row right there, and I don't want there to be a row. So I'm going to pull it more snugly until the two V's, the white V sort of eats the blue V. Then on the back, I'm just going to take a little stabilizing stitch and then turn it back to the front. Sometimes I have to adjust that little white strand just a little bit. Now we're going to match up these horizontal bars with each other, and this is where the mattress stitch comes in. What I do is I come from the back just above the left horizontal bar, but I then go from top to bottom so that that yarn is coming out from below it, which is the same thing it's doing over here, over here, over here. Do you see the yarn comes up from below that edge? Okay, now I find the corresponding bar on the other side of the seam, which is right there, and I move the needle from top to bottom. As you can see, all of these threads go from top to bottom at this edge of each horizontal bar. Now, I take the needle and put it right back in the same place that it came out of. Now, do you see that there's an extra loop there that we can't leave there? So I'm going to pull on it. I'm holding on here to make sure I don't pucker it too much, but I pull it tight until this white bar and that blue bar are the same configuration as the ones all around it. Now I come up for the next one, and find the corresponding bar on the other side of the seam. Go right back in where it came out, pull it tight, lost my yarn. And continue with that all the way down. Okay, I am close to the bottom. Notice that this white strand has come back to the front, so I'm going to pull on it from the back, just kind of tighten it up just a smidgen. And I'm still working on matching up the bars from one side to the other. Now down here, make sure you don't pull up, make sure you know that's not a bar. That is not a bar that you're matching up. See this bar and then this bar. That's the one that you're matching up. If you have any difficulty, follow the concentric circle around. We still have one more to go, and there's a lot of strands in here that you don't want to get confused with. Notice that all of these other bars line up with this one down here, so that one is where you want to come up. And then this is the bar. Do you see how we went around the circle? And that's the bar that we want to match up. Now it looks kind of junky, but let me show you how to deal with it. First of all, I'm going to kind of tug on the white strand, making sure I don't pucker the work. Then on the back, I can pull some of these strands back to the back like that. Might have to work with that a little bit. You can also pull some of these white strands up just a little bit in case they're looking bunchy on the front. And then just continue weaving in your ends. All right, I finished weaving in my ends on the back. This is what the back looks like. And this is what the front looks like. I'm going to rotate it until the seam is at the bottom. You can see the seam right here. If you want to, you can even kind of go in and kind of coax some of those white strands over a little bit so that the seam is not quite so obvious looking. However, I don't think anybody's going to notice that. It looks just fine the way it is. Next, we're going to put a scalloped border around it. All right, I have my blue yarn. You could use white, doesn't matter. You could use some other color if you want. And just pick any stitch. I like to work the blue scallops into the blue stitches, but you can do white into white, or you can do blue into white, or white into blue, however you want to do it. So I just pulled up a loop. I did not put a knot in it first. I pulled up a loop, I did a chain 2, and I'm going to do a double crochet. Now I'm using a yarn under for my first stroke of my double crochet. I've discovered that for some reason this yarn will become untwisted and it makes more of a mess. So for these 2 strokes, which is slip stitch in the next blue spot, I use a yarn under and then a chain 2 with a yarn over, and a double crochet, yarn under, finish it with yarn overs, and then slip stitch in the next blue stitch. So continue that around. All right, I'm almost finished with this scalloped edging. Let's do a few more. Chain 2, double crochet in the same space, stitch, skip 1, slip stitch in the next. Okay, we have one more scallop to make. Chain 2, double crochet. All right, now we're going to join the 2 scallops. So I'm going to snip my yarn here, pull it out of the last stitch, thread the yarn into the yarn needle, and I'm doing an invisible join, also called a needle join, and I like to put the needle under the 2 strands of the front of the first chain, front to back, and then back into the same stitch out of which the yarn tail came, and also that strand below it and behind it. Then my favorite way to handle this is to make a knot. Kind of a gentle knot there, and then another knot, and pull that one snugly and weave in the ends. I like to go down about 4 scallops. Pull it through, make sure I didn't gather it too much. Go back the other direction. snip it off. I know that the conventional wisdom says that I should go back a third time, but I think that makes this just a little too thick. And it does have a knot in it, so I'm trusting that it's going to hold just fine. Besides, when this is used as a dishcloth, it's going to, the fibers are going to kind of mat together, and it makes it harder for things to come apart, for things to wiggle loose. But you can spend as much time weaving in ends in every direction as you desire. I don't know if you can tell, but it's a little bit concave right there, or convex, depending on how you look at it. And I also noticed that there's a kind of a strand sticking up right there. So what I'm going to do is go to the back and kind of pick at it. See if I can pull that to the back. It's not perfect. But if I had a, if I took a steam iron to this, it would make it nice and flat. And so there you have your finished piece. A hexagon-shaped motif made with Tunisian short rows. Thank you for watching. Just thought I'd measure this for us. See how big it turned out. It's 7 inches from point to point, which is a good size for a dishcloth or a kitchen doily. You could put a nice potted plant on top of this on your kitchen countertop and it would look very attractive. Thanks again.